If you're working on a novel, a short story, or a script, you're going to want to stick around because we're going to be talking about the writing development all the way to what it takes to be ready for the market. Then 2 writing sprints. We'll start with the first one. It'll be 20 minutes, and then we'll hop into the second one after the discussion. Welcome to Kauffman Writes. I'm Kauffman, and this is my daily creative writing live stream that I've created to help you become a better writer and beat writer's block. All right. So, welcome. Let's hop right into it. We're going to start off with the first writing sprint, 20 minutes. So, I'm going to pull this up so I can get the timer up. Now, if you're a writer and you're wanting to tag along, you're more than welcome to write with me if you want to just get 20 minutes of writing done. But let's say it's been a really busy day for you. Totally no worries. You can always kick back and relax, and you can watch as I'm writing, and I'll write vicariously for the both of us. All right. So let me throw up the music. All right, we're feeling emotional ambiance today. So far, I'm working on my last Scarecrow story. Let me blow the screen up for you. Awesome. So here's the synopsis if you want to check it out. I'll make it a little bigger. Let's see. I'm going to say I'm roughly about 40% of the way through the story right now. Now, I've, of course, blown up the text so that way you can read along, make it easier for you. All right, I am at the start of a new chapter. Oof. All right, my my heroes, the Scarecrow, Last Scarecrow, Pebble the Pixie, and Mr. Crow just escaped a village of cannibals, of cannibalistic inanimate objects. So that was a doozy. Unfortunately, it's not going to be getting too much easier either. All right, I need to pull up my chapter title. Here we go. Yes, so this is going to pull me into chapter 18 then. All right, so let's see make sure I got the music here. All right, perfect. So chapter 18, where are we going to take them? So they just escaped the cannibal village. So they went from leaving the city, new city, where they went to a garden and dealt with manipulative, mind controlling flowers. And then they escaped to it was like a prankster. It was like a village in the middle of a forest with the cannibal creatures. So unfortunately, it's not going to be getting any easier for them. I just ask myself how I want to get them to the next section. All right, so let's see. I think what we're yeah. I'm asking myself if where so I know where I want to get them to next. I'm thinking about what I want this next downtime scene to be. Because I think they're going to be what do I want them to do? All right, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read through the last portion. And by the way, if you're joining, let me start the timer, and it's time to write now. All right, so let's see. This was their valiant escape. So, Bird Brain, over here, Pebble cried. She hung from the side of the cages. Mr. Crow flew towards her, too preoccupied to stay in the air to make any remark. The last Scarecrow dangled his detached straw arm, just low enough for Pebble to grab onto it with his straw foot in tow. Pebble to grab onto it while she clung onto his straw foot. His straw leg. His dismembered, his dismembered straw leg. Mr. Crow flapped with all of his might away from the now preoccupied village of cannibals. The last scarecrow watched as the creatures stopped attacking each other. They collectively held a single creature in the air above them. When he realized it was Cloth, he screamed. Hollered isn't good. He screamed at Mr. Crow to turn around. Unfortunately, they were too far away, and he watched as the creatures raised Cloth into the air and threw the tiny doll into the mouth of the great flame. The last scarecrow screamed. No, it's too repetitive. The last scarecrow cried. The last scarecrow's cries echoed throughout the forest as Mr. Crow carried him, Pebble, and his torn limbs farther and farther away from the village of the cannibals. Ooh, always fun. All right, so yeah, I think for now it's just gonna be lost. All right. What's up, man? Welcome, welcome. Alright, that was a good little, writing sprint. Excellent. So, for A Vaughn, thanks for the, like, I appreciate it. And so, by the way, if you're just hopping into the stream or the replay, we're just, hit the end of our first writing sprint. I made pretty good progress with this part. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next with this, and as we're getting farther in the story, I know I need to start emphasizing the effect that the world is having on these characters. Unfortunately, the farther they get, the more they lose. So I think that's where we're starting to see it signs. We're seeing it now in Pebble and the way she's responding. Her personality is becoming a little bit more disjointed because she's up until this point she's been very like aggressive, very like know-it-all type character, and this is the first time that she's showing a sign of weakness. And then we're actually about to see Mr. Crow, Mr. Crow's response in just a second, and I think this is going to give us a good sprint into what they're about to hop into next. Actually, I'm thinking about it. I think I'm going to there's an obstacle I really want them to go through, but I was like, it might be better if I hold it off till later in the story as an like intermediary thing, but I'm kind of thinking. Awesome. Let me pull myself up. Let's see, Vaughn. My mentor likes your edits and advice. Listen to you read, and my brother-in-law listen to the story. Aw, that's so sweet, man. That's so awesome. I'm glad you really liked it. And by the way, if you're hopping into the stream right now, so on Saturdays, on my Saturday live stream, I do live readings and critiques. So if you want your story read and critiqued, by the way, feel free to either message me, throw it here in the comments, and you can send it to thecreativeghostwriter@gmail.com. And I do those readings and critiques every Saturday. Well, one of the stories I did for Vaughn a couple weeks ago, I just edited a little highlight reel for him and threw it up for him so that way he could show his friends and family. So that was super cool. I'm glad you liked it, Vaughn. That's awesome. It was the reading itself came out pretty good. In the weeks since I've been kind of not improving, but I've been trying to think of like how do I make it as presentational so that way it's still exciting as a reading piece, and then also you're getting value out of the feedback portion of it. So I think that these past couple of weeks they're continuing to improve. Awesome. So let's throw up my break. Let me throw up the timer. So we got a 10-minute break and on the clock. All right. Well, we've been on a break for a few minutes, but you know what? It is what it is. So if you're here, let me throw up our question of the day. So, what is your story development process from ideation to publication or optioned? You want to have a thorough process, whether you're writing a novel, a short story, or a script, from when you have the idea all the way to the final like published thing that's like ready to be put out into the world. Now, I have a lot of experience working both with clients, with my own stuff, and with other writers for a lot of storytelling for like novels and short stories, and then also scripts. So I wanted to actually, I'm going to hop into both of them a little bit. But if you're, let me know what type of writing you do. I'm actually kind of curious. Post it in the comments. I'd be curious to hear. Are you working on like a novel, a short story, or a script? Because I'd love to be able to give you the best advice. Who's ever here in the live stream right now? So starting off with a novel, that's with short story, short form telling, or novelization. That was actually one of the first things that I came up with or that I wrote when I was young. I wrote like 20, not 20, it was like 15 notebooks worth of just one story. And I wrote the most epic fantasy story, wrote in the back of the class all the time, and it was great. I finished the novel and realized that a lot of it was garbage, but I had such a great time writing it. And then in the draft since, it's really come along. It's been a little while since I've gone back to it, but I think that's one of those like it's gonna be one of those like lifetime stories for me. I'll be like, I started this when I was 10 years old, and then I'll be like a 50-year-old man. That'll be awesome. Let's see, Jessica. I do all three, depends on the mood. Love it. Love it. Yep, that's the same thing I do. It's, yeah, so I think with novels, so I think what's important is you wanna start off with the idea part's the easy part generally. Everyone's great at coming up with ideas. So you wanna start off with how are you going to go about writing it? Are you going to the two terms was pantser plotter. So are you the type who's just going to write it off the cuff of your pants or the cuff of your shirt and you're just going to hop into it, just see what comes? That's great. Great strategy. Or you could be the type who's going to outline and plan for it, which is another great strategy. Regardless of what style, pick whichever one speaks to you. The goal is to have fun with the process. You're going to create a rough draft. Now, a rough draft for a short story could be anywhere between uh, 5 pages, anywhere up to like 30 to 50. Novels tend to range anywhere between, I want to say like 100 pages up to like thousands. There's a lot of like epic fantasy have like very long page counts. Now, a lot of times in the writing world, and you probably already know this already, but a lot of times we refer to where a story's at in terms of its word count and not the page count. The reason being is because so many different writers use so many different types of different types of formatting and fonts that referring to it as a word count just makes it universally so much easier. And if you're trying to bring your like final draft to an agent or a publishing house, they're generally going to have very specific or specifications in terms of the type of word counts that they accept and how they want you to format. So once you've done your rough draft, now if you're a screenwriter and you're working on a script, that's the rough draft for a script is going to be a little different because you're more focused on the dialogue and the action. Scripts, visual, right? So you want to focus on how am I going to convey the theme based off what I know the audience is going to see. When you're writing a script, you want to make sure that each scene, if you sit back, close your eyes, can you visualize it on the screen? And you want to go even more in depth than that. You want to ask yourself, it's sometimes we think of things in the abstract. You want to think about if I saw this on the screen right now, what are the specific things I'm going to see? If I'm describing a shootout, can I actually see the shootout between the 2 to 3 people? Because the easier that you can describe the actions that's going on, the more likely it's going to engage whoever you pitch it to. So once you get to the first draft of either your story or your screenplay, then you're going to get it to a second draft. Now, first draft, have fun, make mistakes, make it the greatest story you've ever written in your entire life, or make it a pile of garbage. It doesn't matter. As long as you have fun and you're enjoying the story, that's what matters. So once you've done that portion, you're going to take it to a second draft. And the second draft, at least for me, now every writer has a different process. So my second drafts, a lot of times in the editing world, they're referred to as developmental edits. My second drafts try to revolve around what is the story I'm trying to tell, what are the characters, and what are the dialogue. So I will go page by page, and I will ask myself with each paragraph or each scene, if it's a screenplay, is this conveying either the character development for this character or is this conveying the trying to describe for the action that's going on? Now, I love whiteboards and I'll have like 6 or 7 whiteboards up and I like to actually be plotting all of the things I'm doing, right? So for whoever my protagonist is, I will have like a whole description of them and I'll have all the bullet points of all the things that I want to accomplish. And then as I'm working on the second draft, I'm asking myself throughout it, is what I'm trying to accomplish, does that serve in this paragraph or this scene? Right. And that helps me stay on track as I'm developing it. That will generally take me through a second draft of both, whether that's a screenplay or a story. Then the third draft, what I always love to do, and this is something I highly recommend you try this if you don't do it already. Print out your second or your third draft. If most of the time, a lot of writers probably end up working from their laptops or from a digital format. And if this isn't your style, let's say like you've written it, like handwritten it, then of course you need to you've put it into a word processor on your second draft. But I always suggest you want to hear it read out loud and you just want to put it in a different format, something that you haven't experienced yet. The reason being is it's going to give you a different it'll give you a different like visibility and a different perception of things that you could have missed in the second draft. That's always my recommendations for three the first three drafts of your process. Once it's through a third draft, depending on where my script or story is at, sometimes I'll go through a fourth draft one more time and I'll do it as just like more of a grammatical edit. It depends on how my second and third drafts went. Sometimes my third draft is enough for me to be like, all right, this is in a good place. Now I'm going to hand it off to an editor. You never, 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 whether regardless of what structure you're writing, script or story, you never want to take it to market without having somebody else read it. And no, I mean, your mom's great. Of course, your mom and your family wants to read your stories, but that's not who I'm talking about. Have them read it, great. But what you need is you need feedback. You need objective feedback from somebody who is not a friend or family member, unless they're going to give you, unless they will give you very straightforward, no bullshit advice. Like that's the truth. Because you need to go into whatever your edit is with your editor or with an objective person with the forefront of like, hey, they might tear it to shreds. They might give me all this different advice. And you just want to think about, if somebody's taking the time to read your stuff, whether or not it's a free thing or whether or not it's paid, they want to improve your story. Come at it with that mindset. And then when you get that back, then you take the edits. You don't have to take all the edits you don't have to do all the edits that someone gives you. It's your story at the end of the day. But regardless, like, you get to pick and choose what edits you like, and then you can bring that to a final draft. Do it another reading. Now, doing that editing and that drafting process, some writers will do that a couple times. Some writers will just do it once and they're good. It just depends where your story is at. I would say on whether or not you should do more than one draft with an editor or an acquaintance is going to highly depend on your skill level. A writer who's published 20 books is going to be a little farther along in their writing journey than an unpublished author or a screenwriter who hasn't optioned a script yet. So once you feel confident, final draft, and then print it out, go put it on your bookshelf and leave it alone. I always recommend, before you put the final draft out, you take a couple weeks and then you come back to it and you do one more read through. That's going to give you the final draft that's ready for market. And that's my recommendation, because you want to give it fresh eyes after you've taken a break from it. So that's my process in kind of a nutshell. Let's see, Atomic Elf. Reading it out loud, recording it, and listening to it is a great idea. Yeah, that's absolutely phenomenal, actually. That's really good. I didn't think about the recording aspect of it, but that's a really smart idea. I will always read it aloud, but recording it, and then you can kind of hear it, listen to it back. That might be something I'm gonna try. Atomic, thanks for sharing that. It's a great idea. Let's see, and then Bobicus, but then you have to listen to your own voice. Yeah. Yeah. You're like, hopefully, like, I enjoy the sound of my own voice. I know for me, sometimes when I'm like reading something and then I hear it back on the audio, I'm like, oof, cringe. But after being in a theater for so many years, I finally got over it. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to assume that my voice sounds awesome, whether or not it actually does. And plus, when I've been doing like this live stream process and then I have to go back and edit, I'm like, well, you know what? It is what it is. This how I sound now, I guess. Yeah. Amen. So that's kind of my process for the development stuff. Let's see. Atomic. There are some pretty good AI voices now too. Yeah, so I would highly recommend. So let's say like you don't like your own voice, have you could always have, if you have a beta reader or a friend read it, ask them to record it while they're reading it. Maybe that's another option. But leveraging AI as well. The AI tools that are coming out is like, mind blowing. It's crazy, crazy stuff. You could probably, I'm sure there's a thing where you could put like your story, or you could have put it into like an AI tool, or there's an AI feature where you can have it read it out loud for you. That's another great idea. I always recommend like whatever processes you can use to improve the efficiency of the creative process, do that. The creative the creative process, like that's you. The writer, like that's never going to change. You're always going to be responsible for creating the best creative thing possible, but then we leverage AI to improve the efficiency of the back end of the process. I think that's really smart. But yeah, so by the way, if you guys have hopped into the live stream or the replay, make sure to subscribe and or follow me, and you'll be alerted when I do daily live streams. I do daily live streams, daily shorts, and weekly creative writing videos and articles to help you become a better writer. So I'll be here writing, and you guys can join along if you'd like. Excellent. So with that, what we're going to do is we're going to hop into our second writing sprint. All right. So if you've been joining along, let me throw up the banner. We're going to move into our second writing sprint. And by the way, if you have a question that you want answered, feel free to throw it in the comments, and I'll touch upon the next round of questions. I'll try to do Q&A after the next writing sprint. Behold, behold, I am omnipresent, Bobby. I love it. That's the I think that's the motivation I need to channel into my character, Bobicus. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I needed. My my omnipresent scarecrow we're about to hop into. All right. So I'm going to throw up the music. Once again, you're welcome to tag along if you want to write with me and get some writing done. Or let's say it's been a super busy day for you. You can read along as I'm writing, and I'll write vicariously for the both of us. So writing sprint number 2, let me reset the timer. And let me throw in some good writing music. All right, and I'll throw this up. So if you haven't been following along, this is my last Scarecrow novel. Currently, their current scene is this: the last Scarecrow, the Pixie, and the Crow, Mr. Crow, just escaped from a village of cannibals. Of not just cannibals, cannibals of inanimate objects who've become cannibals. It was an experience, let me tell you. So now we're moving right along as they're lost in the woods. All right, and 20 minutes on the clock, and the time starts now. By the way, earlier when they passed through the garden of this, manipulating flower, the mind control flower, there the thing was the wildflower, the golden wildflower, was singing a song to manipulate, and ever since they fled the garden, Mr. Crow has been con- consistently kind of like singing parts of the song under his breath, and we're going to see just what effect it has had on Mr. Crow soon enough. Hey, what's up, Josh? Thanks for stopping by, my man. Atomic, that was absolutely the song. Baby Flower, that's what the wildflowers sing. Baby flower, do 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 do. I feel like if I had done that song, that might have killed the vibe of the dramatic thing I was going for. That probably would have been funnier. So if on the second rewrite, I'm like, okay, I actually want to make this scene a comedy. That's what I'm going with. Hi, what's up, Sebas? Welcome to the stream. We're just getting one of our 20-minute writing sprints in right now. Feel free to join along, or you can read with me as I'm getting some writing in for the day. All right. Excellent. Perfect, perfect. So, once again, that was another really good short writing sprint for me. I I asked myself because I just had this huge, obstacle of a scene with them, with the Scarecrow, the Pixie, and, Mr. Crow escaping this village of cannibals, and I asked myself, like, "What do I do next?" And I realized before I set them on their next obstacle, I wanted to do a little character development with, Mr. with the last Scarecrow. So, like, I touched upon Pebble, I touched upon that Pebble's forgetting things. I touched upon Mr. Crow is kinda just, like, losing his mind by singing stuff, and the last Scarecrow keeps remembering these, like, visions, these things of the past, his last time with the creators, but if you've been following along earlier in the story, it's the last Scarecrow was alone, like, the creators had been gone and long dead for probably an era for a very, very long time. That's something I haven't quite specified yet. So, ooh, that was fun. All right, let's see what do we got in the comments. Let me pull this up. Let's see. Uh, Atomic Elf. Funny. I was just doing research for my protagonist, completely unrelated to your story, and got a reference to Bran, Welsh god associated with crows and wisdom. Ooh, I actually like that. That's actually really interesting. First off, Atomic, like that's a great reference. I love, 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 love Greek mythology. If any of you ever have any like Greek mythological references, it's like I love it so much. In my character development with these characters, I've I haven't really interwoven too much Greek mythology into these characters specifically, but that's actually not a bad idea as I continue developing them. With like, I think my something I've really wanted to try to accomplish is how do I create a character that's a crow that's going to subvert expectations, right? How do I create a character that's a crow that's going to be different from other crows that we've seen? When you think of a crow, you don't think of generally evil. Crows are generally associated with death. And I wanted to create a different type of crow. Same with the scarecrow, right? When I think of like a scarecrow character, the only thing scarecrow character I think about who has done successfully, Wizard of Oz, the whole Wizard of Oz world. And I was like, all right, I want to do a different type of scarecrow and see if I can do it well. Same with the pixie. I'm trying to do all these creatures in a way that just hasn't been done before. And maybe tying into some like Greek mythological references could actually be really cool. I'm I think I think in my second draft, Mr. Crow, I think I kind of go back and forth on where I want Mr. Crow to land. Sometimes he kind of falls under this like kind of like corny sidekick where he's just very repetitive and sounds like a parrot. And other times he's kind of like a confidant. And like I know where I'm gonna take his story. Like I plotted out the whole thing, but I think I'm still trying to figure out his personality. And that kind of goes back and forth from each scene. Yeah, the crow kind of was his guide earlier in the story. Like I could give him a little wisdom. That actually that might actually be something interesting to tie in. I'm gonna think about that. That might actually be interesting as I continue to develop him because we're gonna hit a huge moment for the crow in probably actually in their next major obstacle. We're about to hit a huge breakthrough for the crow, which will be fun. Let's see, Bobicus. Yay! I know, right? Getting through some writing. All right, so we got through the two writing sprints. If Let me know if any of you guys, if any of y'all have questions. Let's see what we're at. We're hitting over a little an hour right now. So let me know if any of y'all have any like writing questions that you want answered, and I'm happy to touch upon them before I sign off for the day. Think about like story development, and I think the cool thing with when you're creating your own world is you can do whatever you want, right? I'm the proponent of go as big, just go as big as possible. I always feel so bad for writers when they're like afraid to like tell something or they're like, oh, it's gonna suck. And I'm like, yeah, of course it's gonna suck. It's a rough draft. It should suck. Right. But then your goal as a writer is to like, okay, I'm gonna make it better. Let's see, Bobicus. When you read stuff on stream, what do you read? So that's a great question. So actually, one of my most popular live streams is on every Saturday. I do live story readings and critiques. You should definitely come check it out this Saturday. I'm following the same schedule I had last week, so I'll be going live around, I think, 2 o'clock. Let me pull up my schedule for this week. So I'll be going live. This is my schedule for this coming week. Essentially what I read is I reach out to any writers through Facebook, YouTube, through any groups that I'm a part of, and I offer free readings, free excerpt readings to writers. So Bob, if yourself or if any of you in the chat want like an excerpt of your story read, feel free to shoot me an email at, here's the email, the creative ghostwriter@gmail.com. So there's my email. You can feel free to send me an excerpt just at some point before this coming Saturday stream. I'd be happy to read an excerpt from your writing. My goal with doing these readings is twofold. One, I just like to have fun with reading, and I know for some writers it can really help having it read out loud. And then for the other aspect, I want to give constructive feedback and constructive criticism to just help you with working on your story. And I've been trying to think about how do I kind of like streamline this so that way I can help out as many writers as possible in like a shorter time. I think this last Saturday we had about, I think 5 writers submitted their story beforehand, and then I got 1 or 2 in the chat. And it's pretty good. I mean, I think that was my longest stream. We went about 3.5 hours. So that was cool. Let's see. Have to go get some pages done along with you. Jessica, you're anytime. You're welcome to, my friend. It's you see me working over here. It's fun, but like once again, guys, don't like, I'm crazy. I'm a crazy writer. You don't have to copy me. I challenge myself to write 30 minutes a day every day for a year. And today is day 57. And I mean, you guys see where I'm at with Last Scarecrow. That's what's come of 30 minutes a day. So I'll probably be finished with the rough draft by like summer is my guess. And then I'll go into the second draft. For me, doing like second, third, fourth draft and the final, however long it takes, that process for me is a little bit faster because I've been writing as a hobby for 20 years. So I have a lot of fun doing this stuff. Bob, how big? So everyone's been kind of sending me different lengths. What I recommend is I think I can generally get through about 3 to 5 pages. Something that I started trying doing is I'm going to give, I started doing like a time limit or setting a timer for myself based on the number of stories that are submitted and the number of like things that I can actually get through. I think that my limit in terms of like reading and talking might be like 3 to 4 hours, I think, if I get a number of stories, but it's kind of like whatever I can get through in about 20 minutes. I'll spend the first 10 to 15 minutes doing the read through, and then the last 5 to 10 minutes, depending on doing like the feedback. And I do the feedback live. I've been a part of so many different writers groups throughout the years. I've managed writer groups, and I've been a member of different ones for both stories and screenplays. So I have a lot of experience working with all different types of story formats. So what I would suggest is whether it's on like a Google Drive or or whether you have it as a PDF, I would say you could probably send over like maybe like 5 to 10 pages, and then I'll kind of just like get through whatever I can get through. If you could double space it, that would help me out. Makes it a little easier. Usually I'll throw it up on screen and I'll try to adjust the format to Comic Sans because it's easier for people to read along with. According to Google, Comic Sans is the #1 font that writers use when they're working on a draft because it's the easiest font to read on the eyes. But usually like publishing standards, if you bring it to a publisher or you self-publish, I think it's usually recommended that should be Times. It should be Times. So great question. Let's see. I have a natural break at 3 pages, single spaced. Yeah, you should definitely do that. I'd love to check it out. I'm curious what yeah, it actually works really well if there just happens to be a natural break. Usually when I'm like in the middle of the reading, I can usually feel it out in the reading. But if you have a preferred spot, like that's totally fine. What style of story are you writing? I'm curious. I think so far we've kind of gotten a mix. I don't think I've got any screenplays yet, but I know one of my screenwriting friends actually, I think is gonna have me do a screenplay for this coming weekend. I think so far we've gotten a mix of some fantasy. Let's see, I want to say I've done there was some really cool fantasy one. There's one we did a published author this last weekend, which is super cool. Done fantasy. I did some sci-fi. We did poetry the other weekend, and then we did a thriller, crime as well, which was super cool. So kind of rounding out all the genres. I think I'm just having fun reading everything. Let's see, fantasy mecha, no sci-fi elements. Ooh, I love fantasy. I grew up being a huge fantasy nerd, so like the type of feedback that I'll provide is generally going to be feedback that revolves around storytelling. I'm blanking right now, but storytelling, standard storytelling elements, which is the type of feedback I would give any type of work, whether it's a story or a screenplay. But I think if it's I'll always say firsthand if it's a type of thing that I would read, because I think when you're doing any type of review and or feedback, I think the editor needs to let the writer know whether they are the intended audience or not, because I think that's a factor in terms of interest. I'll give the same feedback regardless, but I think if it's something that I would usually read, it makes it a little easier for me personally. But fantasy mecha sounds cool. Let's see. That's I'm trying to think if I've seen any like fantasy mecha. Because mecha, I always think that makes me think a little like sci-fi. I always think of mech with like animes all the time. Let's see. It's the start of my second novel. Ooh, that's exciting! Congrats on your first novel, then. By the way, that's awesome. That's really cool. First novel is just a first draft, but you know what? Just the fact that you wrote a first draft, like I was like, not killing my audio over here, but snaps. Like the fact that you wrote a first draft, Bob, puts you so much farther ahead than so many other writers out there who struggle with even getting started. So great work on that. And then you can kind of just take it as a process and go step by step. And you want it in Comic Sans. You know, the formatting's fine. I'll generally change it on my end when I put it into my word processor. I think I'm still kind of standardizing like what I'm accepting from people as I'm as I set up for the shows. So I'll usually tell everyone to like send them to me, and then I'll reach out if I have any like questions, generally like Saturday morning in terms of formatting. But if I can, I'll try to just throw them on a Word document so that way I can just knock them all out back to back. There's Escaflowne, but otherwise, Escaflowne sounds pretty familiar. And actually, that does Escaflowne. Actually, I want to pull it up. Where's my Escaflowne? That sounds very familiar. Yeah, you know, I haven't seen that one specifically. I think one of my favorite anime, well, my favorite all-time anime is probably Death Note, like the original anime, like god complex character, like perfect cat and mouse in an anime, like love it. I haven't watched too much anime recently except for Airbender, because clearly it's just been on Netflix. But I think my favorite mecha anime show is probably, and it's not even a mecha show, but it does have it in it, is probably Code Geass. Because I love that like god complex anti-hero. Yeah. Absolutely, right? That's it. It's cool. Escaflowne looks interesting though. She's the president and falling out with her only friend. Yeah, I'd probably watch that actually. It's probably something I'd watch. That's super cool. I might add it to my to my watch list. If it was in 96, then I know that the style. I think when we think of like classic classic mecha type shows, I think everyone always thinks I think of like Evangelion. Evangelion is perfect classic. Really did the genre justice. So, but I wouldn't say that I'm a huge anime fan. I've seen a lot of everything. I'm a huge storytelling fan. So like I'll watch anything from like an anime to horror to fantasy to thriller, western. I'll watch any genre. I care more about the script and how the storytelling is. I'm the type of like, I'll watch it, and then at the end, I'm like, all right, so this is why this story did or didn't work, and here's how I would have done it differently. And here's like if it was a script, this is probably what the original writer intended, and this is probably what changed as a result of producers and different rewrites. Oh yeah, Gundam is absolutely an OG. When I think of Gundam, I think of let's see, I think of what's that? Transformers, Gundam. Yeah, Gundam. Yeah, I never watched Gundam at all, but I always think of the whole Transformer series, especially because I remember watching the movies at one point, and I thought that was super cool. That was always fun. Yeah, I think I'll usually end up doing maybe like 2 animes a year when I think about it. Like I'll go through it. But of course, like I blame the Netflix live adaptations this past year. 100% I blame Netflix because I watched the Netflix live action of One Piece, which was super great, by the way. Of anime to live adaptations, the One Piece adaptation was actually pretty well done. I was very happy about that. And that got me to want to like go watch One Piece. And then the same thing with Avatar: The Last Airbender. But I mean, yeah, I've already seen Avatar. I knew that it would be fun. Let's see. I have a script idea I want to write, but I want to get through some other projects before I attempt it. Yeah, I totally get that. I think with working on different projects, it kind of changes for every writer. I think there's some writers where they want to focus on one story at a time until it's done. And then there's other writers who have like multiple projects that they're juggling. I think it just comes down to how well you know yourself and knowing like, if I start on this project, am I still going to go back and continue to finish the other projects? And it also kind of depends on what success looks like for you, right? So if your goal is just to write stories for yourself, then have at it. That's all that matters. I have a script idea. Make sure to write your script idea down though, so that way you can like actually physicalize it. Do you have any type of like a brainstorm or any type of like tool for documenting stuff? With my stuff, I probably have like anywhere between 10 probably like 10 to 30 different like story ideas of things that I could write in the future. I probably have about like 5 to 10 active projects, but when I start getting more into one, I try to get the project to a final draft before I go back to one of the other ones that I'm working on. Nope, but I have a good memory and it's burned pretty tight in there. Hey, that's what's up. You know then that's going to be a great story. Like that's going to be super fun then. When you have like a story that you're passionate about and it kind of like sometimes you just have to let it ruminate for weeks, months, or even sometimes years, and like then you'll know when is the right time to start working on it. That's actually really cool. Let's see, if you write it down, your subconscious will go to work on it too. Yeah, that's a really good point. Why once you start putting on the page, you'll kind of like start thinking maybe more of like the story building elements of it and like fleshing out the idea. So I've actually done both things before. There's been times where I've like brainstormed a story for probably like a couple of years. And then I was like, okay, now's the right time to tell this story. And then there's been other times where I just like come up with the story. I'm like, I have to write this down right now if I want to start working on it right now. But I still like to keep track of all the different things regardless. I'm of the mindset that like I don't want to be like driving somewhere or in the middle of doing something with life, have a great idea and then lose it. Yeah, like that I would hate because I can be forgetful sometimes. And the worst thing is to have a great idea for either a new project or something I'm working on, and then for me to be in front of a computer and be like, what was that? What was that idea? I hate that feeling so much. So I don't let myself forget ever again. I'm like my characters, they're forgetting everything. I'm just an old man over here. Oh yeah. So, but yeah, definitely, definitely some really good talks. And if you're just hopping into the live stream, we're just talking about how do you keep different story ideas, and like what's your process for when you get a new idea? Do you write it down, or do you just like keep it up in your brain until you're ready to write it? Definitely feel free to join in the comments. But yeah, I feel like every writer's different. It really is. And I feel like when you research different like writing methods, you'll have so many different writers tell you that there's like one type of method to go by. Just do your own method. Do what you love. Do what works for you. Check out different methods from different writers and like see different styles, and then you kind of like take what interests you. And that's usually my recommendation. I really try to highlight the creative process, especially the rough draft. Like you should just have fun with the rough draft. Let's You should just have fun with it. If you're trying to like get something to being like published, then when you get to the future draft, that's when you kind of have to take it more seriously if you really want to like get it to that next level. So awesome. So once again, thank you all for joining me. If you found any value from today, writing sprints, conversations, it was a really good conversation actually. I want to shout out Bobicus and Atomic. Very great conversations, by the way. But if you're watching this on the live stream or the replay, don't forget to like this video so that way you can let me know that you enjoyed this, and then follow and subscribe on whether you're watching from YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, any of the stuff. Let's say, oh my god, my first book struggled with that so much because everyone insisted you needed to have character growth to have a story. I was writing a tragedy with a flat character. Oh my god, that's kind of funny. Yeah, I think that the challenge with the creative process is you know the type of story that you want to write. Now, I think there's a lot of like I think there's a lot of good rules and good practices for storytelling principles. Um, but it's the same rule that like know the rules before you break them, right? So if you're writing a story and your character's not following a normal hero's path, like that's fine. But are you intentional with why the character's not doing the thing? Because when I'm writing a story, if it's for myself, I do whatever I want because I'm going to have fun with it. If I'm writing a story and it's going to be published, then I have to think about if a reader's reading this, what is their experience going to be like? Right. And if I'm doing something that's non-linear and I'm breaking the rules of like dialogue conventions, structure, that's fine. But will a reader still stay along, or a viewer, if it's a screenplay, will they still be able to stay along with what's going on and be invested in the story? So I think that's a good rule that I like to live by. Yeah, the norm rules absolutely did not apply. That's for sure. So I think that's also like, I think it's good to be aware of a lot of principles of like creative writing, storytelling, but I think you have to apply it. It's a lot of times it can be situational in how you apply it to whatever story you're working on. And especially when I'm working with different clients and I'm working with different like writers over the years, I'll always try to get a sense of like what's the story that they're trying to tell, what's their vision for their story, where they think it needs to go to, and their goals before I kind of bring in my own process and try to understand. Because like my goal is to help people bring their stories to life. It's not my story. And so if the protagonist doesn't change, usually it's the world of those around them that end up changing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that's a really good point. And I think it's one thing if you write a story and your protagonist doesn't change and you don't realize it, right? And it's a fault of just writing skill. But I think if you're writing a story where intentionally your protagonist doesn't change, it's almost like I'm trying to think of a really good example, but it's almost like the protagonist not changing is actually the change itself. It's kind of like reverse character development. I feel like I've seen it done successfully somewhere, but no examples are coming to mind right now. Awesome. And with that, y'all, I'm gonna sign off for the day. I appreciate y'all hopping in, joining on the conversation. I'm I got to get some other work done. So once again, thank you all for joining me today. I of course love these discussions. I'll be here live streaming every day, 5 p.m. Mountain Time, Monday through Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday will be 2 p.m. Mountain Time. If you want to come join and share your work, Bob, definitely shoot me an email if you wanted me to get through that story. It sounds like a cool story potentially. Awesome. So thanks again, y'all. And I'm Kauffman, and I'll catch all y'all on the morrow. All right. Peace out, guys.